Hello, welcome to Sleepy History Tales. Tonight, I would like to invite you to join me on a slow journey through the pages of history, filled with dust and time, but still full of unsolved mysteries. Today's story is a secret buried for more than a century. A village that has disappeared from the map. A coal mine that never existed on paper. And the faint echoes from underground still make the locals tremble to this day. But before we begin, I want to ask you a question. Where are you hearing this story from, and what is the weather like? Where you live right now? Every time I read a comment, I feel like pieces from all over the world are gathering under the same sky of this story. If you like slow journeys like this, both relaxing and creepy, then be sure to subscribe to the channel Sleepy History Tales and turn on the notification bell. Because every week we will sit together in strange stories forgotten by history. So, imagine you are holding an oil lamp in your hand, and together we will step into the dark underground of Hartwell mine. Over 100 years ago, on a map of Sussex, southern England, there was a small dot called Hartwell village. At first glance, it was just a village like any other. A few rows of grey stone houses, a small pub, always smoky, a tiny church with a slightly tilted bell, and a dirt road leading down to the mouth of the mine. The people here live simply. During the day, they work in the mine. At night, they raise chickens, tend sheep, and every Sunday morning, they all gather in the church to listen to the priest preach. It sounds peaceful, like a rural painting. But when you read old diary entries, yellowed newspaper lines, you will see this village is very different usually. Almost every family has someone working in the mines. Men go down to dig coal. Women and children carry dirt, pick up rocks, or go to the roadside to sell coal to passing merchants. Their whole lives are tied to the ground below. However, there is a strange thing. Hartwell mine, the place that fed the whole village, is not listed in any official books of Sussex County. No mining license, no production report, not a single line about work accidents. An invisible mine, but enough to feed an entire community. So what do you think? If an entire village exists thanks to something that is not allowed to exist, then what will happen when the government starts to take notice? And if you were living in that village, would you dare to go down to a nameless, undocumented coal mine, but the only source of income for your family? Try to please think again in the comments, because sometimes your answers help me understand a lot more about how people look at historical stories like this. In September 1874, on a small riverbank in the American Midwest, the story begins with what seems like a simple accident. A wooden bridge, the main access road connecting the two banks of a small community, suddenly collapsed after several days of heavy rain. People initially thought it was just a case of severe weather damage. But when a group of villagers examined the broken pieces of wood, they realized something was wrong. Some of the pillars had been cut cleanly, like knives, completely unlike natural decay. From this event, rumors began to spread. Some thought it was an act of sabotage intended to cause chaos in the peaceful community. Others believed it was related to the hidden conflicts between large families who had been fighting over land and water resources for many years. And then, when a resident found bits of tar-stained rags in the cut-out wood, a substance only professional bridge builders use, the fear grew even more. Strangely, no one claimed responsibility, nor was there any clear evidence to charge anyone. The local authorities later concluded simply, accident caused by rain and floods. But most people did not believe it. They knew that the bridge was built more solidly than that, and no matter how strong the storm was, it could not cut the wooden joints as cleanly as a steel axe that had just passed through. From then on, the long nights became uneasy. People began to lock their doors more tightly, light up their homes, and whisper scary theories to each other. Some people thought that this was just the beginning, that someone or a group was experimenting with a new way to sow panic in the community. What do you think? Was this a natural accident as the authorities concluded, or was it a carefully planned act? If you had been there in 1874, what would you have believed? When we think of the late 19th century, it is a period when America was facing many violent changes. Industrial cities sprang up rapidly. Smoke from steel mills, coal plants, railroads covered the sky, both promising prosperity and spreading unpredictable darkness. But in every cobbled street, in every large house of the tycoons, there were stories that few people knew about. There were pieces of history that had never been recorded in books, only quietly passed down through a few newspaper clippings, a few personal notes, and sometimes only remaining in the form of half-true, half-false rumors. The story you are listening to today belongs to that kind of fragile memory. It began with a seemingly ordinary event, the disappearance of a woman. But from there, a mysterious network of wealthy families, secret agreements in the dark, and truths that no one dared to make public gradually emerged. Imagine if a city like Newport, Rhode Island, famous for its lavish summer homes for the upper class, were hiding a huge secret. Would those houses still be lit up by nothing more than chandeliers and dance music? Or would there be hidden rooms where cruel decisions were made, affecting hundreds, thousands of people outside? This is the context of our journey together. And as usual, I want to stop for a moment to ask you, the regular audience of Sleepy History Tales, where are you listening to this story from? What is the weather like where you are right now? A peaceful evening, a drizzle, or a monsoon knocking on your window? Please share in the comments, because I always find it interesting that this story can be heard from many places around the world at the same time. Now let's go back to Newport in 1893 to see how a disappearance shook an entire community. As night fell on the small village, the silence made the rumors all the more terrifying. People often whispered that there was something in the story that had never been recorded in writing, existing only in the memories and weary eyes of those who had survived the time. Newspaper pages, if any, seemed to have been removed or suppressed before they could be widely circulated. This left what we know today as fragments, as if the whole picture had been deliberately torn away. In some old diaries found in the local library, there were vague details of carriages passing by in the middle of the night, carrying boxes covered with black cloth. People never dared to ask what was inside. All we knew was that the next morning, if any family in the village heard crying, that silent carriage had certainly passed by the night before. The strange thing is, all the stories end the same. No one dares to testify. No one dares to give their names. Even a few witnesses who boldly told the story after only a few weeks, they either left the village without saying goodbye or disappeared mysteriously. This makes people believe that there is a force behind it, controlling every word, every secret, like an invisible hand, always present in the dark? And do you see history is often not only written with obvious events, but also woven with gaps, things that are intentionally hidden? It is in those gaps that we find true fear. What do you think if you were one of the people living in that village, witnessing the mysterious cars late at night? Would you have the courage to find out, or would you choose to remain silent to preserve your life? If you're watching this video, I would like to invite you to share your thoughts in the comments section. And don't forget to subscribe to Sleepy History Tales, so that whenever there is a mysterious historical story like this, you will be the first to hear it. But you see, mysteries never lie still. After the initial suspicions were mentioned, a series of strange events began to occur around the family and the community involved. It is said that on quiet nights, a dim light often appeared in the upper window of the house, even though the place was sealed. Some people claimed that they saw the figure of a woman in a white dress standing motionless, as if looking down at the deserted road. Although no one dared to approach, the rumor spread quickly and became a hidden fear among the villagers. The more they investigated, the more ambiguous details appeared. Letters believed to be from the missing person suddenly appeared in the old mailbox, but the handwriting was not exactly the same. The penmanship was stiff, unnatural, as if someone was trying to imitate. Later handwriting experts compared and concluded that part of it was real, part of it was fake, making the line between truth and staging difficult to distinguish. Another detail that made many people shiver: the old tree right next to the house, which was often climbed by children in the village, suddenly withered quickly within just one season. No longer had green leaves, the tree trunk cracked bare and died, standing like a warning. For the people of that time, it was not a coincidence of nature, but an ominous sign. And then, as if to add to the horror, a priest who tried to perform an exorcism in the house collapsed in the middle of the ritual. He recounted that when he read the last part of the prayer, he felt as if an invisible hand was blocking his throat. When he woke up, he discovered that his jaw was cracked even though no one had touched it. He himself wrote in a letter to the diocese, "This land knows how to listen. It remembers names buried too soon." What do you think about this? Are these just stories made up to instill fear, or is there really something beyond human understanding? And more interestingly, if one day you pass by an abandoned house and see a flickering light in the window, would you dare to go near it? If you are still following the story, don't forget to subscribe to the Sleepy History Tales channel so you don't miss the next historical mysteries. Oh, and I also want to ask, where are you watching this video from? And what is the weather like? Where you live right now? Share in the comments. I love reading people's answers from all over the world. In the weeks that followed, the mystery of the disappearance did not die down, but instead spread like a mist, permeating the inns, the wealthy parlors, and the narrow streets of the working class. The stories began to change, each adding a detail, an event that they claimed to have witnessed. Some said they had seen a black carriage speeding through the night, heading toward the old cemetery. Others claimed to have heard a faint cry from the riverbank just before dawn. And then there were the supernatural rumors. The shadow of a woman in a white dress standing by the second-floor window of an empty house, disappearing as soon as someone approached. The spread of these rumors was not simply a matter of imagination. It reflected the deep unease of the community. For every whisper contained a worry if a woman of high status could disappear without a trace, what would happen to ordinary people? The city government initially tried to keep quiet, but public pressure grew. The press continued to publish half-truthful, half-fictional articles, making the story even more thrilling. In the pages of the newspaper, someone even described that the room where she lived had a strange scent, like burnt beeswax and rusty metal, a detail that could not be verified but made the story all the more creepy. What is remarkable is that amid the storm of rumors, a few small pieces of truth began to emerge. A note found in a drawer, an unfinished line on a desk, even a candle purchase receipt dated to the night she disappeared. Each detail seems trivial, but when put together, they gradually form a picture much more complex than people think. And here, I want to pause for a moment to ask you, the audience watching, if you were in that moment, would you believe those thrilling rumors, or would you try to cling to the small, fragile but more concrete pieces of evidence? The answer can tell us a lot about how people choose between belief and truth. In the following months, the atmosphere in the community gradually became heavy. At first, people only considered the stories of the deaths and disappearances of a few famous figures as a series of tragedies. But then, as the list of people who suddenly passed away grew longer, people could not deny that there was something, an invisible hand or a prearranged plan, secretly controlling everything. In the old records that researchers have found, many witnesses confirm that there was a secret meeting between a group of the richest and most powerful people in the region. They met not in halls, not in lavish parties that easily attracted attention, but in closed rooms with guards outside, with guest lists never written down, only nods, understanding looks, and sometimes small pieces of paper passed around and quickly burned in the fireplace. That is how these secrets survived over the years without leaving any clear evidence. But the strange thing is, even without any official documents, the people in the region still passed around a name. A haunting name, the Shadow Council. That name was initially just a rumor, but then more and more small stories appeared to connect, to form a dark picture. A printer claimed to have seen a strange, faintly marked stack of papers with a list of people who were to keep quiet. A maid recalled hearing a few names read out at a private party, along with a reminder, when necessary, they must leave the game. And so on, the unexplained deaths coincided eerily with the rumors that were circulating. Here, I want to pause for a moment to ask those of you who are following, if a small group of powerful people could manipulate the entire community, causing people to disappear or die without anyone daring to question them, do you think society at that time would still have real freedom? Or is everything just a big stage where the strong write the script and the fate of the weak is just a supporting role erased at any time? And you? Where are you hearing this story from? What is the weather like where you live today? Please leave a comment, because your sharing will make this story much more vivid. As the mystery deepened, the veil of silence surrounding the case began to crack. Those who had witnessed it, heard it in passing, or participated in the shady events finally dared to say what they had never said. But strangely, every time a witness opened his mouth, it seemed as if a disaster had struck. A man who worked in the factory told of seeing strange carriages carrying unaccounted goods entering the warehouse of the powerful family at night. He claimed that the wooden crates were carefully sealed and that there were signs of military markings on the outside. However, just 3 days after his confession, he was found unconscious on a deserted road. It was said that he had fallen off his carriage, but the injuries did not seem to be an accident at all. He survived, but he lost the ability to speak. Another widow who had worked as a maid in the Vandermark household also decided to speak up. She said that one winter night that year, she heard screams coming from the basement. When she approached curiously, she saw that the thick wooden door was locked, but from inside, there was a flickering light of fire along with the smell of burning metal. That story silenced the entire courtroom. Until a few days later, she was taken to a mental hospital with a diagnosis of severe paranoia. She was never allowed to leave the place again. And so piece by piece, the truth was revealed, but always with a price: eternal silence, memory loss, or unexplained death. Don't you find it strange? It's as if an invisible hand was sweeping away all traces, forcing those who dared to speak the truth to pay with their own lives. And right now, I want to ask you, if you were witnessing those things, would you have the courage to stand up and tell the truth? Or would you choose to remain silent to keep yourself and your family safe? Don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments section below. And if you want to continue diving deeper into these creepy historical secrets, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next parts. As public and press pressure mounted, fragments of the truth began to leak from those who had witnessed the darkness. At first, it was just whispers in taverns or anonymous notes sent to local newspapers. But gradually, some witnesses bravely stepped forward to tell what they had seen, knowing that the choice could cost them their lives. An old gatekeeper at the factory admitted that on many nights, he saw trucks loaded with sealed wooden crates being brought out without any paperwork. The crates, he said, were unusually heavy and made strange noises like muffled struggles. A few days after the story broke, the gatekeeper disappeared. His family insisted that he had been at work as usual before his disappearance, showing no signs of leaving the place. A young nurse who had worked in the secret clinic said she had seen powerful men enter and exit the place in the middle of the night. They carried thick envelopes, and in return, they had torn up documents and burned them in the coal stove. But just a few weeks after sharing this, she suddenly died in a staircase accident that the police hastily concluded. People whispered it was not an accident, but silence bought with fear. And then the last witness appeared. An anonymous man who had worked as a secretary to take notes for the secret meetings of that powerful group. Before he disappeared, he left behind a handwritten letter scribbled in black ink, which was found in a drawer of a cheap motel. In the letter, he admitted, "What I write here may be my last words. I have kept silent for too long. I have seen their signatures, heard their blood oaths. They do not only control the business world, they own the soul of this city. If anyone finds this letter, please do not believe that I have left. Know that they have come." Then he disappeared completely. No body, no trace. Only a piece of paper soaked in fear remained like a final relic of the truth. The story became increasingly gloomy. The witnesses who dared to reveal the secret one by one paid the price. And each death, each disappearance made the curtain covering the truth more terrifying. In the years since the incident, the atmosphere surrounding the incident has not calmed down. On the contrary, it has become more dense and suffocating, as if the entire community were wrapped in a silence that had to be maintained. But then one by one, witnesses who had seen pieces of the story began to speak. And the price they had to pay for the truth, none of them could have foreseen. The first was a former factory worker who appeared at a closed meeting, saying that on the night of the incident, he had seen the freight cars unsealed. He insisted that someone had deliberately broken the protocol, but soon after his testimony went viral, he disappeared on his way home. The local newspaper simply reported it as traffic accident, but no one believed him. Next came a nurse who had worked at the hospital where the victims had been taken. She confessed to seeing records, erased death certificates with altered signatures. She decided to share with a reporter. 2 days later, her rented room burned down overnight. People found only ashes and a half-burned medical record book. Each time a witness spoke, another story of mysterious disappearance emerged. And in the community, fear gradually turned into obsession. Who was behind all those silent deaths? Could the truth escape the iron grip of power? And then one last witness, an old man who had been a secretary in the offices of powerful figures, left a handwritten letter before leaving his house one morning when no one would see him again. In the letter, he wrote, "I have kept silent all my life out of fear and because of my oath. But now my eyes can no longer see clearly, my hands tremble so much that I cannot hold the pen firmly. I do not want to take this secret to the grave." That night, I heard them calling each other's names. I saw the list signed in blood, and I knew that the deaths were only the first step in a larger plan. If anyone finds this letter, please understand. We have not only lost people, we have lost the truth itself. That was the last line. No one found him after that day. The room where he left the letter was still intact, except for the wooden chair that swayed as if someone had just left. People spread the word that the letter was given to a priest, but it quickly disappeared from the church records. Some even asserted that anyone who read the entire content of the letter would meet the same fate as him, disappearing without a trace. And here, I want to gently ask you, if you held in your hand a letter revealing the truth but knew that reading it could make you disappear, would you dare to open it, or would you let it burn with the fire, letting the memory sleep in the darkness? The more people dared to reveal secrets, the tighter the grip of power became. In the city, whispers no longer existed only in taverns and old churches. They began to spread among merchants, even among the small officials of the local government. But every time a voice was raised, a figure disappeared. A court clerk who had kept records of property disputes between the upper class told friends, "I saw the names of the disappeared families erased, replaced by powerful names." A few days later, he was found drowned in the river, although he had never learned to swim. A landlady also heard strangers discussing shadow deals. She dared to mention it to a young journalist. But when the journalist arrived, the inn was locked with no trace of the landlady or the tenants. And then, like a final bell, a handwritten letter appeared, supposedly from the last witness, a young lawyer. In the letter, he wrote, "If you are reading this, I am no longer here. I have seen too many forged documents, too many forced signatures. All of it leads back to a group of people. They call themselves the Council in the Dark. I believe they can take action against anyone who stands in their way. I cannot remain silent, but I cannot escape either. Please believe that the truth is never lost. It is just being held captive. After the letter was found in the empty rented room, no one saw the lawyer again. No body, no trace. Only the trembling lines remained like a will of someone who had seen too much. The atmosphere in the city was different now. People no longer whispered out of curiosity, but out of fear. It seemed that anyone who touched the secret had to pay the price with their own disappearance. And I want to ask you, the audience listening, do you believe that the more a secret is hidden, the more people will risk their lives to find the truth, or will fear eventually silence all voices? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to continue to accompany me to explore the dark but fascinating chapters of history, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We will go deeper into this journey. As the final testimonies rang out, a dark picture emerged. It was no longer just a series of fragments, but a vast tapestry of crime, deceit, and bloodshed. A young historian who had been pursuing the story for years finally found a musty notebook in a local archive. The pages were fragile and trembling, but the contents were like a scream from the past. In it, he recorded secret meetings between powerful people, discussed ways to silence witnesses, how to stage fake crime scenes to fool the public, and even where money was siphoned off, never recorded in official records. The scariest part is the last part. If this truth is brought to light, not only will the perpetrators be buried, but this whole city, this whole generation will be swallowed up in shame. Remember, silence is the last key that keeps everything standing. Readers of these lines cannot help but shudder. Is that why many witnesses chose to disappear instead of speaking up? Is the truth not only dangerous to a few people, but also threatens a system that is rotten from the roots? And when that notebook is compared with the last letters, the hasty accounts before closing their eyes of the witnesses, people realize everything fits. The names, the dates, the secret transactions. Each piece falls into place. Dear audience, do you feel this horror? The feeling when each secret is exposed, no longer a rumor, but evidence. Just imagine if you were one of those witnesses, would you have the courage to tell the truth, or would you choose to remain silent to save your life? Here at this very moment, history is both tragic and terrifying. Tragic because so many innocent people have fallen. Terrifying because the system can still hide, manipulate, and make disappear anyone who dares to speak up. And this is also the moment when we have to face the biggest question, the truth. Can it survive through generations, or will it be buried forever by fear? Before moving on to the next part, where the tragic but no less haunting ending gradually reveals itself, I want to ask you once again, what do you think about this notebook? Is it the final confession, or just another layer of drama built to lead us deeper into the maze without exit? If you also felt this was one of the most stressful parts, please let me know by leaving a comment, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the ending of this story. The silence of decades has finally broken. Fragments of evidence, last words, and hidden records have come together to form a terrifying picture. It is no longer a rumor, no longer a hypothesis, but a cold, chilling truth. Those who once doubted are now forced to face it. The mass disappearance was not random, not an accident, not simply a shadow of history. It was the result of a series of deliberate actions protected by power, nurtured by public silence. A final record found in a wooden box hidden deep in the basement of an abandoned mansion revealed what people once feared to mention. A list of names, dozens of names, missing victims marked with an X. Beside them are cold notes completed, processed, silenced. The more I read, the more I felt an invisible hand tightening around my chest. This was no longer a tragedy of individual families, but a collective wound, a crime perpetuated in silence with the complicity of those who were supposed to protect justice. And then, the final witness, his dying letter, was like a finishing blow. If anyone finds this line, know that we have seen, we have heard, but no one dares to speak. I choose to leave this truth even if it makes me disappear. Forgive my cowardice. The truth is right between us, but we have neglected it. The letter ended with a shaky handwriting, then stopped mid-line, as if he had been interrupted while writing. There was no longer any doubt. The final truth was everyone knew, but no one dared to stop it. That is the most horrifying thing. A crime that is not covered by darkness, but protected by the silent light of the whole community. And then, when reading these last pages, one has the feeling the story has never ended, because that silence still exists, creeping into every family, every street, every bloodline of this land. Perhaps you yourself, listening to this story, will also feel it as if somewhere there are eyes still watching, guarding, waiting for someone to dare to mention what has been buried. Dear friends, after a long journey with many layers of secrets, we have come together to the end of the story. Conspiracies, disappearances, half-hearted confessions, and even letters left in despair, all have painted a picture that is both tragic and cold. But is this really the whole truth? There are gaps in the records, torn pages, witnesses forced to remain silent forever. Even when the curtain is drawn back, we still cannot be sure, is there a deeper layer, another darkness that has never been touched by the light? That is what makes this story haunting. It does not have a clear ending, but rather like a song that stops abruptly, leaving an echo in the listener's mind. Sometimes, silence is even more terrifying than confession. And now, I want to ask you, if you were the last witness, would you dare to leave the truth in a letter, knowing that it could make you disappear forever? Or would you choose silence to survive, even though your conscience will haunt you forever? Think about it and share your feelings in the comments section. The story ends here, but the echoes still remain. The shadows of history often refuse to sleep, and sometimes we are the ones who have to find the answers for ourselves. If you want to continue to accompany us on mysterious historical journeys, don't forget to subscribe to the Sleepy History Tales channel, because there are many other stories as creepy and haunting as this one waiting. Thank you for listening, and I wish you a peaceful sleep if possible. So we have come to the end of a long journey together, where the accumulated secrets are removed layer by layer, but still leave gaps that have never been filled. There are stories in history that do not have a clear ending, Only unfinished pieces remain, lying quietly in the dark, waiting for the next person to find them. When we close this story, we can hear its echoes still echoing somewhere, like a whisper from centuries ago, distant but still clear in human memory. And now you can gently close your eyes, letting the story fade into a dream that is not exactly peaceful but gentle, as if history is just whispering in your ear, never disappearing. I wish you a very peaceful night. I will see you again in the next stories where the past speaks once again.